I used to think that you had to go to the best locations in the world to get good photos, but the longer I spent shooting in relatively normal or boring places, the more I realized how false this is. And in today's video, I've got 5 tips for you to hopefully help you take striking photos wherever you go. First off, you want to create as little friction as possible between spotting a photo or a scene that you like and being able to actually take that photo. We all love camera bags and we all love having loads of different compartments for all our little accessories and stuff, but I'm pretty sure every single photographer out there has been out and about walking around, spotted something that's slightly interesting and they've felt, there could be a photo there, but they've carried on walking because they can't be bothered to get their camera out of their bag. Or if it's a moment that's passing quickly, by the time they have got their camera out, the moment has gone. I've done it and I know you've done it, we're all human, but if your camera is already in your hand when you're out on a dedicated photo walk, then there's no excuses to at least attempt to try and get that frame that caught your eye. Plus, to be quite honest, although we can see photos with our eyes and spot photo opportunities, we have absolutely no idea whether it's going to make a good photograph until we lift our camera and start framing it up. For me, if I'm on a dedicated photo walk, I don't put my camera back in my bag unless I'm going into a shop, driving, or perhaps taking a lunch break or something like that. 100% of the time it is attached to me via a wrist strap, which obviously means, we're all safe and sound. Having said that though, I have got mild carpal tunnel in my camera hand, so I might be swapping to the trusty neck strap soon. But I digress. The other bonus of this, of having it in your hand all the time, especially for me, is it increases my ability to stay in the photo noticing mind state, which brings me nicely into my next point. Your job when you're out as a photographer to take photos is to notice and observe everything around you that could possibly result in a pleasing photo. And that mindset is something that actually takes quite a lot of work, and sometimes you even have to actively remind yourself to get into that mindset. As much as we like to claim as photographers that we see in photos and everything we look at, we're looking at it like it's a photo and it's all subconscious, we still definitely miss more than we see. Think about when you're running an errand, you're going to the post office, you're going to the bank, whatever it may be. You might park up in town and your ultimate goal is to get to the bank quite quickly, because who wants to spend that long going to the bank? And as you walk in there, you could be head down, you could be away with the fairies, daydreaming, thinking about what's for tea. And typically we're a little bit shut off more than normal from the photo noticing mind state. When you're out to take photos, the worst thing you can do is be in that A to B mindset where you're just walking from A to B or doing a route or something and not questioning the things that you notice and whether they could turn into a great image. The most striking photographs I take are because I ask questions. I see some shadow or I see some railings. Instead of just seeing it, I say, is that something you can use? Is there people walking past it? Is the light likely to change? Can I use it as any kind of framing? And these questions ultimately are what result in way more photos and way more striking photos. Imagine a non-photographer walking down a promenade at the beach, and you've got the beach and the ocean on the left and loads of other stuff on the right. That person's probably going to be walking down the promenade, looking out to the ocean and the beach and thinking, what a lovely day. But as photographers that are actively out trying to take photos, we need to look beyond the obvious. You don't want to walk down that promenade as a photographer and just stare at the beach and the ocean. You need to look around, observe, and notice everything you possibly can. Here's a great example of this when I actually was walking down a promenade, and instead of staring out to the ocean and the beach and stuff, I was actually looking at the more boring stuff that were on the other side of the promenade. And I came across this bench here that you may have seen in a recent video of mine. And I looked at it and I thought, well, can I use that in any way? Can I use the railings to frame something? Can I use that stonework there as contrast, that environmental contrast? And what I did is I got up behind it, I used the railings as framing. We've still got the beach and the ocean in there, which is the point, I guess, of being at the beach and the ocean. But I've created something way more compelling and interesting than just your bog standard photo on the beach. I'm going to dive into this way deeper in an up and coming video because I feel like there's way more to say about it. In conclusion, when you're out specifically to do photography, try to look around and notice and think like a photographer rather than somebody that's moving from A to B to get to the bank or the post office or to pick up a new t-shirt. Something that I think is super, super powerful is looking out for normal scenes or subjects that have a unique or temporary difference to them. For example, let's say you're in your local sleepy village down the road, you've been there hundreds of times. Bins aren't exactly that interesting or aesthetically pleasing, are they? But let's imagine you spot a bin in that village that has a pizza box on top of it and a beer bottle from the night before. That would be a temporary or unique addition to an otherwise normal scene that can result in that being a very interesting image. What about if the local bus stop round the corner that's normally rammed full of people getting on the bus, you pass it one day and there's just a single person stood at the bus stop with an umbrella up. Maybe there's a car at the side of the road, but the car's got a sheet over the top of it. Maybe it's a normal path that you walk down, but this time there's a closed sign on the path. These tiny changes to everyday scenes really, really help add just that little bit extra to these boring locations and help you take interesting photos wherever you are in the world. And to be honest, if you can master this in somewhat normal and boring places, imagine how good you're going to be at getting photographs when you are somewhere brand new that you consider to be super aesthetic and inspiring. Speaking of bins, check out this photo here of this this fox coming out of the bin. Hopefully that's focused because now I can't see the LCD screen on my camera. But this bin has to be the most normal and UK based scene you will ever see. I'm pretty sure everyone in the UK knows these bins. They're everywhere. They must be the industry standard of bins, but that addition of that fox popping in there, all of a sudden you've turned the most boring scene in the UK into something really, really interesting. That's by Matt Moran, by the way, shout out Matt. And I guess I know a fox in a bin is a very extreme example because that's quite an incredible moment, isn't it? And the scoping and the time that would have to be spent in order to capture that is quite incredible, but it does go to show that a bin, as I said, a bin, the most boring thing in the world, can actually result in a fantastic image. Okay, so we spoke about not just walking from A to B aimlessly and hoping that a photograph will wildly appear in front of us previously, right? And now we're going to double down on that. If you feel like you're always sort of running around when you're with your camera, trying to find photos and trying to just get around places really fast and hope that something appears or a photo just magically presents itself to you. Instead, use that mindset of curiosity and noticing when you're out and about to position yourself strategically for something that might happen to then give you an incredible photo rather than running around chasing them. You're basically trying to predict a photo before it happens, but you've got much higher chances of that resulting in a great image because you've already spent the time to position yourself and frame something up that's probably pleasing already, but you just need that little addition. Given that time's on your side and you don't need to rush home to watch the football, obviously how long you want and choose to stay in a place with a photo setup is completely up to you. But I do think, especially for people that struggle with finding photographs when they go out, when they've framed something up and they feel like it's creative and beautiful, being patient and waiting around for that moment to happen will reward you more often than not. Okay, lastly, let's touch on a very, very simple tip again for taking way more interesting and striking photos in areas that might be quite inspiring and new to us. However, they've been photographed a million times and they're considered tourist hotspots, if you will. And I won't spend too much time on this one because literally all you have to do when you're at a tourist hotspot or a landmark or a famous subject is ask yourself, well, how can I photograph it and capture it how non-photographers have never seen it before or would probably never think about including it in their images? An emphasis on include here because I think personally, including a slice or a little portion of a subject that's really famous or a hotspot in the frame, but it's not like the grand master point of the image, points at you already taking a way more interesting and creative photograph than anybody else. Let's take the Tyne Bridge here in Newcastle upon Tyne, for example, which is one of the most iconic bridges in England. It's been photographed millions of times, normally from down on the quayside in front of the river, with the other bridges around it included, which is great. But for anybody that lives in Newcastle or has visited Newcastle or has seen the Tyne Bridge hundreds of times, it's no longer really that interesting. Here are a few images that I've taken that include the Tyne Bridge, but in a completely different way. I'm not saying they're groundbreaking or that I'm the first person in the world to ever do it, but they certainly stand out from the tourist iPhone photos and the same old nighttime long exposures of the bridge that you'll see on Google Images. This one here was shot without even facing the bridge. I was shooting away into a window and having the reflection of the bridge present, which really shows how many photographic opportunities there actually are in the world, but it's down for us to search them out and think deeper and harder about how we can include these famous places, subjects, or what have you in the frame, but in a brand new way. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. Check out the links in my description if you would like to support my channel and the videos I make here on YouTube. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.